At the Vilnius summit, NATO members jointly condemned North Korea's nuclear and missile developments. President Yoon attending the summit called for greater action on the North Korean issue as he also strengthened Seoul-NATO relations. North Korea fires a long-range ballistic missile into the East Sea this morning following its warnings against the U.S. over spy planes allegedly intruding into its airspace. South Korea sees an increased number of people in employment last month, but that once again is led by senior citizens as youth employment continues to fall. Good afternoon. We start with North Korea's latest provocation, firing long-range ballistic missile into the East Sea this morning. This comes as the regime has been sending warnings against the U.S. for a spy plane allegedly intruding the North's exclusive economic zone. We have our Choi Min-jung on the line with the latest. Min-jung, what can you tell us?
Kyung-eun, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff announced that North Korea fired what is presumed to be a long-range ballistic missile toward the East Sea at around 10 a.m. Wednesday. The missile was reportedly launched from the Pyongyang region. This is the North's first ballistic missile launch in 27 days, and the launch comes a day after North Korea threatened to take military action after the regime accused the U.S. of, quote, illegally intruding into the sky above its economic exclusive zone with a spy plane. Kim Yo-jong, the sister of the North Korean leader, had warned the U.S. that it will face a very critical flight if it continues to violate the North's airspace. Both Seoul and Washington, however, have denied the accusation, and they stress that the flights around the Korean peninsula are routine and that they adhere to international law. Following Wednesday's launch, South Korea's military said it is maintaining a full readiness posture in close cooperation with the U.S. while elevating vigilance. This is all I have for now, but I'll be back with more on our next newscast. Back to you, Kyung-eun.
All right, Min-jung, thank you for the reporting. North Korea's nuclear and missile developments were condemned by NATO at the ongoing Vilnius summit. President Yoon attending the summit called for greater action on the North Korean issue as he also strengthened Seoul-NATO relations. Our top office correspondent Oh Seung has more from Vilnius.
South Korea has upgraded its bilateral partnership with the North Atlantic Treaty Alliance, whilst jointly addressing common issues spanning North Korea's nuclear threat, building peace in Ukraine and new technologies. On Tuesday, President Yoon Suk-yeol and NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg adopted an individually tailored partnership program for South Korea and NATO, highlighting 11 areas of cooperation. These include 7 specific areas, including non-proliferation, counter-terrorism, cybersecurity and emerging technologies, with 4 areas of implementation, including working and high-level dialogue, capacity building and interoperability, and public diplomacy.
이번 나토 참석은 나토와 한국 간의 협력의 틀을 제도화하고 나토와 군사 정보와 사이버 분야의 협력에 관한 논의를 진행하기 위해서 이번에 왔습니다.
In particular, the President emphasized intel sharing and cyber cooperation, sharing his plans to establish an international cyber training center in Korea, which he hopes will work closely with NATO's Cyber Defense Cooperation Center.
This is because the battlefield is not limited to a specific territory and geographical scope, and many illegal acts and violence have been committed online, transcending time and space, and psychological cyber warfare has developed to sway public opinion. Thus, in all areas of security, from installing cutting-edge technologies to intelligence, strengthening intel and cyber cooperation is all the more vital.
Yoon also called for a firm global response to North Korea's growing nuclear and missile provocations, to which Stoltenberg voiced his support. The South Korean leader also reaffirmed Seoul's unwavering support for peace and reconstruction in Ukraine. He's expected to further highlight these issues Wednesday with his counterparts from other invited Asia-Pacific countries, Japan, Australia and New Zealand.
President Yoon will moderate the meeting of the so-called AP4 nations as they look to increase and deepen cooperation across the Indo-Pacific and Atlantic regions based on their growing areas of overlapping interests and challenges.
Following the meeting, the South Korean leader is set to speak at a NATO session extended to partner countries. The 31-member alliance on Tuesday called for the complete, verifiable and irreversible denuclearization of North Korea in a joint communique condemning in the strongest terms North Korea's weapons of mass destruction and ballistic missile programs. It also urged the Pyongyang regime to return to international agreements on nuclear non-proliferation, as well as dialogue proposed by Seoul, Tokyo and Washington. 오수영, Arirang News, Vilnius.
On the sidelines, President Yoon also held several bilateral meetings with each tailored to focus on a particular area of interest as the South Korean leader seeks to expand Seoul's partnership with Eastern Europe. President Yoon has sought to use the NATO summit in Vilnius as a path to expand South Korea's diplomacy in Europe through a series of meetings with the leaders of several NATO members and allies. Those include a meeting with Norwegian Prime Minister Yoon, where the leaders discussed cooperation on renewable energy, defense and research in the Arctic region. And in his meeting with Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte, a third time to do so, they discussed stabilizing the global semiconductor supply chain and cooperation on artificial intelligence. The digital sector also topped the agenda in Yoon's talks with Portuguese Prime Minister Antonio Costa. While the meeting with New Zealand's Prime Minister focused on the mutual supply chain, discussions with Hungary's Prime Minister were on electric vehicles and the bio sector. Yoon discussed nuclear cooperation and the defense industry with Romania, and talks with Sweden's Prime Minister were on building key supply chains such as batteries and rare earths. While each meeting was focused on a particular area of interest with the respective nation, the South Korean leader had a broader aim to expand Seoul's partnership with Eastern Europe as a whole, which the presidential office deems critical to national security.
Until now, Yoon's summit-level diplomacy was focused on Western Europe and America. But this NATO trip serves as a chance for South Korea to expand global supply chain cooperation with Eastern Europe. The region could play a strategic role in complementing Western Europe on economic security, with its basic science capability and potential.
President Yoon also used each meeting as a platform to promote South Korea's bid to host the 2030 World Expo, as well as showing Seoul's solidarity in supporting Ukraine and calling for cooperation on North Korea. The president will continue meeting other leaders on Wednesday, including those from Japan, the UK, and Finland, which will bring his combined bilateral summits from his NATO trip to 13. Much of the domestic attention is on President Yoon Suk-yeol's planned sit-down with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida set for today on the sidelines of the NATO summit. A senior official at the presidential office said on Tuesday that a specific agenda had not been decided, but the two sides are likely to discuss Japan's plan to release Fukushima wastewater into the sea, which has been met with strong opposition by Japanese fishermen, environmental activists, and countries in the region. The official also said the meeting could be seen as a resumption of top-level diplomatic exchanges, with the two leaders also discussing how to address exchange rate volatility, supply chain instability, and promoting research in cutting-edge tech. In the meantime, NATO leaders agreed to invite Ukraine to join the alliance, but refused to give details of a timeline. Our Lee Seung-jae has this one.
NATO leaders in the Lithuanian capital on Tuesday offered an invitation to Ukraine to join the military alliance, but remained vague on further details, including any time frame.
We reaffirmed that Ukraine will become a member of NATO and agreed to remove the requirement for a membership action plan. We also made clear that we will issue an invitation for Ukraine to join NATO when allies agree and conditions are met.
In the communique on Tuesday, NATO did recognize the need to move faster, but would not be drawn on a timeline for when Ukraine would be invited to the alliance, as the leaders struggled to agree on when Ukraine might join, as well as other conditions of its membership. NATO members did, however, acknowledge that Ukraine's military was increasingly interoperable and more politically integrated with NATO forces, adding it would continue to support Ukraine's push for democracy and security. NATO's lack of clarity over offering Ukraine membership into the military alliance led President Vladimir Zelensky to criticize the latest statement. Taken to Twitter on Tuesday, the Ukrainian leader said that while the country values its allies, Ukraine also deserves respect, adding that it's unprecedented and absurd when a time frame is not set neither for the invitation nor for Ukraine's membership. Zelensky also slammed the delay, saying there seems to be no readiness to invite Ukraine, adding that a window of opportunity is being left to bargain Ukraine's membership in NATO in negotiations with Russia, meaning it will give Russia the motivation to continue its terror. 이승재, Arirang News.
After his NATO trip, President Yoon will be heading to Poland. A number of business leaders will be accompanying the president and are expected to strengthen ties in batteries and defense. Yoon has more.
With President Yoon Suk-yeol set to visit Poland in the coming days, business delegations from South Korea will be heading there too to discuss strengthening bilateral ties in energy, defense, and infrastructure. These delegations will include the chairman and chief executive of LG, Gu Kwang-mo, Hanwha Group's vice chairman Kim Dong-kwan, and chairman of LS Group, Gu Jae-eun. LG's affiliates, including LG Electronics and LG Energy Solution, currently run a total of 8 corporations in Poland with almost 9,000 employees. LG's production accounts for 1.8% of Poland's GDP of over $688 billion. In addition, LG Energy Solutions plant in the city of Wrocław is the biggest battery production site in Europe, and its production output surpassed 10 trillion won, or around $7.7 billion for the first time last year. LS Group, led by the chairman Gu Jae-eun, operates production plants for EV battery parts and fiber optical cable. The group's business in Poland continues to see growth, now standing at around $227 million in terms of monetary value. Its chairman visited LS Cable and System Poland Corporation in April to strengthen its position in the European EV ecosystem. Poland is also known for its defense sector. Hanwha Aerospace and the Polish government made a pact in August to export the K9 Thunder, a South Korean self-propelled howitzer, and signed an additional contract to export multiple rockets to Poland in November, bringing the total to over $6 billion. Hyundai Rotem, which is supplying K2 Black Panther tanks to Poland, is expecting a contract extension in the second half of this year following its visit to Poland. Construction companies are also anticipating expanded business opportunities, as some Korean companies have already won contracts to build the biggest petrochemical plant in Poland. And with Poland launching a nuclear project, MOUs between the two countries are expected in next-generation energy sectors such as small modular reactors, which Korean companies are highly recognized for. 이은진, Arirang News.
South Korea saw an increased number of people in employment last month, but that was once again led by people above 60, while employment for younger people and in the manufacturing sector continued to decline, prompting a government pledge to resolve the employment imbalance. Our economic correspondent Lee Dae-yeon has more.
More than 28.8 million people were in jobs last month, up 333,000 from the same period last year. According to Statistics Korea, June marked the third consecutive month for on-year increases above 300,000. However, the latest figure was down slightly from May, some 351,000 more jobs compared to the same month the year before.
With increasing demand for daycare services and more outdoor activities resuming, a rise in the number of people in employment continues. But due to the sluggish construction market, the on-year increase dropped compared to May.
By age, the number of people over 60 in jobs is continuing to grow, with 343,000 more people in that age group employed. However, the figure for those aged 15 to 29 dropped by 117,000, decreasing for the 8th month in a row. One official from Statistics Korea says the continuous drop in employment figures for younger people is due to the overall population drop. It also said fewer jobs in the manufacturing sector and wholesale and retail businesses have also caused a decline in youth employment. In fact, the manufacturing sector continued with a 6th month of consecutive jobs decline, with 10,000 fewer jobs on year recorded last month. The number of people employed in the construction sector dropped 62,000, the biggest drop among all sectors. The medical and social welfare service sector rose 126,000. Meanwhile, earlier on Wednesday, Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho said in an emergency economic meeting that the government will focus on resolving job mismatch issues by improving the working environment and utilizing foreign workers in Korea.
Following the measures to resolve labor shortage issues in 6 sectors, including manufacturing and logistics in March, the government will roll out the same measures in 4 sectors, such as shipping and construction.
He also said government support for small-sized companies with policies that support working parents will be expanded, while the visa quota for skilled foreign workers will be increased. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
Torrential rain swept South Korea on Tuesday, claiming at least 1 life. The capital area is expected to experience a lull in the rain today, while certain regions will see more downpours. Our Lee Soo-jin has the latest.
1 person has died after heavy downpours swept across South Korea on Tuesday. In Yeoju, Gyeonggi-do province, about 60 kilometers from Seoul, a man in his 70s who was walking along a river was killed after being swept away. Police and firefighters launched a search after his daughter reported that he had gone out to exercise and not returned. His body was found in the bushes near a river after a 3-hour search. At the time, Yeoju was seeing up to 60 millimeters of rain per hour. In Busan, 2 women in their 60s were stranded at around 3:40 p.m. as the water level of a local river rose during the heavy downpour. Although one was rescued, the other is still missing and the police are still searching for her. Seoul also had heavy downpours on Tuesday, with Dongjakgu district getting more than 100 millimeters of rain in a single day. Emergency alerts were issued to several areas in Seoul, including the districts of Dongjakgu, Gurugu, and Yeongdeung-pogu. The Korea Meteorological Administration implemented a new measure on June 15th to directly send emergency alerts to regions experiencing intense downpours, which are classified as more than 50 millimeters of rain in 1 hour and 90 millimeters of rain in 3 hours. The heavy rain also disrupted the operation of subways in Seoul. Subways in the metropolitan region have to halt services when there is more than 65 millimeters of rain per hour. Trains on Line 1 were temporarily halted but resumed within 10 minutes. Trains on Line 4 were suspended for 2 hours. As of 11:30 p.m. on Tuesday, heavy rain warnings for Seoul and Gyeonggi-do province were all lifted. The KMA forecast today to be mostly cloudy with a lull in the rain in the Seoul metropolitan region. Southern parts of the nation, however, are expected to see heavy rainfall of 30 to 60 millimeters per hour, accompanied by strong winds, thunder, and lightning in the afternoon. The KMA has issued heavy warnings for the cities of Tongyeong and Gyeoje in Gyeongsangnam-do province as of 6:50 Wednesday morning. According to the Gyeongsangnam-do Fire Department, there has been a total of 15 cases of heavy rain-related damage, such as damaged roads and flooded homes, reported between 1 p.m. Tuesday and 9 a.m. Wednesday. Heavy rain across the nation is also being forecast until this weekend. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
The Chinese embassy in South Korea said it is hopeful that the first ever birth of giant panda twins in South Korea will boost bilateral friendship. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin on Tuesday emphasized the panda's role as messengers promoting friendly exchanges and expressed hope that the cubs will bring joy and strengthen the friendship between South Korea and China. The twin cubs were born last Friday at Everland, the country's largest theme park, almost 3 years after the arrival of Fubao, the first panda born in South Korea. China has practiced so-called panda diplomacy since the 1950s by sending giant pandas abroad.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In the U.S. state of Vermont, 1 person has died in major floods. More than 100 people had to be rescued. The state and other parts of the Northeast were hit by a massive storm over the weekend that dumped up to 2 months of rain in just 2 days. The floods washed out roads, damaged houses, and caused billions of dollars of damage. Flood watches were issued to millions of people in the region, but these were lifted on Tuesday evening. Still, local authorities remain on alert as dams are near capacity in Vermont and many rivers remain swollen. The state is forecast to see more rain on Thursday and Friday. We move over to Thailand now, where Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha is set to retire from politics. The announcement was made Tuesday, 2 days before the country's parliament was scheduled to vote for a new prime minister. A general election in May saw opposition parties win overwhelmingly in what was widely seen as a rejection of military-backed rule. The outgoing PM was not expected to gain enough support in the lower house to win another term. His government has been criticized for repression of civil rights and freedoms and for its handling of the coronavirus pandemic and the economy. The retired general began his rule over the country in 2014 after seizing power in a military coup. He was later formally elected in 2019. He will remain as prime minister until a new government is formed. Two siblings have become the youngest ever winners of the prestigious Segrave Trophy after both set records for flying solo around the world. The dual British and Belgian citizens, Zara and Mac Rutherford, aged 18 and 21, picked up the award on Tuesday. Mac became the youngest person to fly unaccompanied around the world in 2022 at the age of 17. And 8 months earlier, Zara became the youngest female pilot to accomplish the feat, aged 19. The trophy goes all the way back to 1930 and is awarded by the Royal Automobile Club to those who demonstrate skill and courage in transportation on land, water, or in the air. Previous winners include Lewis Hamilton and Richard Branson. And finally, a volcano near Iceland's capital of Reykjavik has erupted. Called a minor eruption by the country's meteorological office, it erupted Monday after weeks of minor earthquakes in the region. The eruption on the Litli Hurtur mountain is located in an uninhabited area known for its volcanoes, eruptions and lava flows. It has so far emitted no ash and caused no disruptions to the capital's nearby international airport. Authorities have, however, warned that there could be an accumulation of dangerously high levels of volcanic gases, which could affect the capital if carried by winds. A major volcanic eruption in Iceland in 2010 grounded tens of thousands of flights in Europe due to ash plumes. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Hope those in central regions stay safe during Tuesday's downpours. Today, it's southern regions that are seeing heavy rain from early dawn. Rain is coming down hard with heavy rain alerts in place in South Coast regions. And until this afternoon, the South will see 30 to 60 millimeters an hour of heavy rain. And until tonight, 전라남도 and 경상남도 provinces could see more than 100 millimeters of downpours along with strong gusts of wind. The landslide crisis alert is at its second highest level in Korea, except for on Jeju, where a heat wave warning has been issued for parts of the island. Brace for strong heat day and night. The capital region will be free from rain today under partly sunny skies, with highs going up 5 degrees higher to 30 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Then tomorrow, wet and stormy conditions make a return to central areas and stay wild through Friday, but rain will linger through the weekend. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of the day.